I'm an infantry officer. I'm a simple guy. We had three very, very deeply intellectual folks give you a very concise intellectual case for the Trump doctrine, the New Jacksonianism, whatever you want to call it. And that's important. It's important that we have an intellectual basis for this. It's also important that we talk to the American people. And my job has been to simplify. Whether I'm talking to 12 people in a jury box who couldn't figure out a way to get out of jury duty, or a bunch of amped up lieutenants who need some guidance, you've got to break it down and make it simple. What is the New Jacksonianism? The New Jacksonianism, I think, is best summed up as, well, you foreign savages can do what you want in your own hellholes, but if you mess with us, we'll kill everyone you ever met. Now, Andrew Jackson was an ornery cat. This was a dude, he got his face cut by a British officer because he wouldn't sign the guy's shoes. He was a fighting, drinking, dueling guy. He was a real badass. And you know what? That's the quintessential American, okay? Not the bow-tied incel virgins down at Foggy Bottom, but the guys who kick ass and take names. And we've got to explain, as people trying to promote national conservatism, how this New Jacksonianism is essential to our nation. Okay, you must assume, if you're going to be a Jacksonian, you must assume the existence of a nation, as opposed to this gooey, amorphous, transnational baloney that we've been subjected to. That I think you guys described in better detail than I ever could. International rules-based order. Give me a break, okay? Rules-based order is a guy with a rifle standing there. That's rules-based order, okay? And normal Americans know that. The normal guy at the bar stool, who all the swells make fun of, understands that in his heart. He knows it because he grew up on playgrounds before they suspended anybody who got in a fight, the bully or the picked on kid, right? He understood the reality of the human struggle that most of us older folks picked up on that playground. You mouth off, you better be able to throw down. That's the reality of life, not some feminized version where some SSRI-ridden Chardonnay swilling teacher tells you to use your inside voice. The world is a brutal place, full of brutal people. And normal people understand that. And we need a foreign policy that recognizes that. That we can be the biggest and the baddest guy on the block, but that doesn't mean we've got to be a jerk. Now, we had that power at one time. I was there. I was there at the time and the place of the height of American power. By sheer luck. I was assigned to the headquarters of 7th Corps in the Gulf War. Now, 7th Corps was one of the two corps that were supposed to cut the heart out of the Warsaw Pact when they came flooding through the Fulda Gap before the wall fell, right? 7th Corps was 100,000 American soldiers. On our left was the 18th Airborne Corps, which would make the right flank movement. On the right were the Marines. We were the armored fist. 6 armored divisions, plus a British armored division. And in 100 hours, we tore the guts out of the entire Iraqi army. Hannibal would have said, "Holy cow, what an envelopment." Napoleon would have said, "I've never seen anyone move that fast." Caesar would have said, "What stunning courage." And in that moment, and I'm sitting there, I'm just a lieutenant, right? I'm so far in the rear, they'd have to FedEx bullets to hit me. But I'm listening to radio calls that I would later read about in history books as we did something amazing. And in that moment, America was supreme, untouchable, unquestionable. Our power was limitless, and our enemies shook. in their sandals or boots or whatever other footwear they had. And then it all went downhill. Here's a challenge. From 1992 to approximately January 20th of 2025, can you think of a major foreign policy success by the United States of America? Anybody? Okay, that was okay, but that was a start. That was good under Trump, so I will give you that. But that certainly wasn't the foreign policy establishment. All our betters were much, much worsers. They were terrible, and they were wrong because they didn't. Only intellectuals can take something simple and make it such a mess. It's really simple. You screw with us, we're going to finish you. So don't screw with us. And you know, that's remarkably effective. Now, do you think before he lost like 60 pounds, The Rock walking through town, anybody ever went up and said, let's fight? No, nobody didn't. And they didn't do that to America for a few years until Bill Clinton decided, you know, we need to help out those Somalians. We are, they're there in Mogadishu, and deep down they just want to be like a small town in New Hampshire, full of people with a beautiful little maple leaf democracy. And of course, a bunch of Americans came back dead. And I got to tell you, seeing Americans die is no freaking fun. Here's the Schlichter test. Can I go to the mom of an 82nd Airborne paratrooper in Omaha, sit down, look her in the eye, and say, your daughter or son died for something? And I made sure to say daughter because we have a super duper paratrooper over here. Hoorah, all the way. And by the way, a little shout out to a Vietnam veteran over here, First Cav, Gary Owen. That's my test. Okay? And I got to tell you, we failed. I was, for a short time, the lawyer for the families of one of the 13 Marines killed. Marines, there were Army and Navy too, but mostly Marines. I was present when a Marine colonel came to brief the family on the after action of what happened at Kabul airport. First takeaway is our troops performed magnificently, our junior troops, and we should all be very proud of them. But you know, that colonel couldn't look in that family's eyes. He couldn't look in that mom's eyes, that dad's eyes, and say, here's what your son died for. Your son blown apart. He was standing closest to the bomber. This is real stuff. And real people are writing checks in real blood for every decision we make in foreign policy, which is why the New Jacksonianism is so important. It's because it recognizes priorities. What's the priority? The United States of America. Now, what isn't it? It isn't vulgar isolationism. It isn't saying we have no allies. We should certainly have allies and friends. People with whom we share interests, people with whom we share an affinity. But we can't fix all the wrongs in the world. Look, I went and I trained Ukrainian soldiers, okay? I went over there 4 times, trained them, served with them in Kosovo. I went there after 9/11. You know, some people got to go put out the fire at the orphanage in Afghanistan, others the fire at the fireworks factory. I got to take the cat out of the tree. But it's hard to understand why people just think that because a couple of Slavic folks are having a fight, we somehow need to be a part of it. Well, we'll just provide air cover. Okay? That gets us into a war. Well, we'll just provide, some fire support. No, that just gets us into a war. As much as I like the Ukrainians, training them, serving with them, I don't see, and I don't think most Americans see, how a single drop of blood of an American soldier is worth it to sort out a Slavic border dispute. And I don't want to minimize it. I'm on the Ukrainian side. I wish they could win. Not our fight. And I wouldn't have said that 30 years ago. Oh no, I was full in on the Bush thing. I was full gung-ho. And I went. But I've changed because we have demonstrated an inability to rely on our alleged best and brightest. They failed us again and again. And they would inevitably fail us if we were in Ukraine. Now, of course, we have a president. We have a barstool president, Donald Trump, although he doesn't drink, and he's got $10,000 suits, and he has gold toilets. He is, in many ways, that guy sitting at the bar who's saying a lot of wise things. And, we make fun of the guy because, he doesn't have a fancy degree. And don't believe the fancy degrees. I have a degree from the Army War College. It's the party war college. It's Chico State of war colleges. But common sense, the common sense of normal people. A guy who, sitting on that bar, says, I was in, I was operating outside of Kandahar, and one day we'd go into a village and we'd clear the Taliban. Next day, and we'd go out, and then the next day we'd have to go in and clear them again. And then the next day we'd go clear them again. They called it COIN. They called it counterinsurgency. And it didn't make any sense. And that he's right. It didn't make any sense. The only people it makes sense to are overeducated people who don't have to write the checks in blood. And that's what we've got to care about. That's what we've got to think about. Our people. We are a nation. Okay? We are trying here to form a leadership class to help bring our nation back to what it is. Let's remember who we're doing it for. Okay? We're doing it for that mom of the paratrooper. We're doing it for that paratrooper. And we're doing it for ourselves. Now, another thing that the new Jacksonianism is not as pacifism. Obviously, we're not pacifists. Obviously, wars aren't always wrong. And you know what? Interventions are not always wrong. Take Iran. Now, we have a lot, and Victoria expressed exactly why we should have did what we did in Iran. I support it greatly. But there's another reason. They killed Americans. They got Americans killed at Desert One. They blew our people up. They killed hundreds of Americans in Iraq. And we let it go? We let these 7th century savages murder Americans without retribution. And retribution is different from retaliation. Retaliation is you punch me, I punch you back because you punched me. Retribution reinforces a paradigm. And the paradigm is, we don't do this. You don't mess with us. That's why we're coming back. That's why you're going to pay. And the same thing in Israel. I see people in our, well, why are we supporting Israel and Gaza? Supporting Israel and Gaza, they murdered Americans. They raped Americans. I didn't sign up for any ideology that allows a bunch of barbarians to rape and murder my fellow citizens. If taking retributions off the table, and we've seen that, we can't prosecute the wrongdoers. That's retribution. We can't use our political power to fire people. That's retribution. Retribution's a cornerstone of civilization. Okay, I've been a conservative for a long time. Was there a meeting I missed where we decided, no, we're not going to do retribution anymore. We're just going to kind of roll over? No, that never happened. And it can't happen. It can't happen in our domestic politics. It certainly can't happen in our foreign policy. The new Jacksonianism is call it the Trump doctrine, a recognition that we are a nation that has interests. And part of the interest is taking care of our own people. In fact, that's our highest interest. And that's what we need to do. Thank you.